for you?
12 maybe?
12?
And then OBS was just like, nope, you're done.
All
That's
right,
good stream.
Let's count it.
Let's call it a day, guys.
As long as we can surpass that.
GG, everybody.
Yeah.
It's live, you know. Things happen.
live.
Sometimes YouTube is very unforgiving of that too. YouTube's just like, oh yeah, you stopped streaming to me, that whole thing is done. We're never going to go back to that one again.
Well, there's actually a setting for that to have it auto start or auto stop. Yeah, I have learned that the hard way as well.
Yeah, good to know.
For sure. Hello and welcome,
Welcome.
everybody.
Hi.
We weren't here last week. We didn't do an episode last week.
No,
we were busy. We were busy. Very busy, all of us.
Yeah, we were doing things that we still can't talk about.
Yes,
at this point, right?
yeah. And then also I was
Assassinations.
on vacation.
Yeah, you went away. The whole thing went to hell.
Yeah, you know, it happens. Hello,
Adam is the
friends of
glue.
the show. We got all the cool people. Hey, you know what? I also got to give a shout out to, I think that's Roman over on the Macro. No, it's probably Alex on the Macro podcast. You know, I'm not a huge Mac fan here. Not that you need to be either, but we have soft launched the Macworld, the video edition of the Macworld podcast. The historical Macworld podcast has been around for a long time. So if you are maybe a Mac person, I know you are. You should go subscribe.
Look, I don't need that heat. I mean, yes, I'm using an iPad right now, but I used a I used a laptop. That's not a Mac. Neither of these are Macs. I don't own a Mac.
You know, but you can listen to the Macworld podcast.
I like a Mac podcast.
Yeah.
I like to know what's going on over there.
Well, yeah. If you want to listen to some Apple stuff, I don't know why, but if you do, you know, go over to listen to the Macworld podcast. Roman hosts it. I love Roman.
Roman's great.
So I give people crap, but I was a diehard Mac person. Like hardcore. I got my first Mac in 2008.
What I'm hearing.
No. I was able to get myself away from that. But I was hardcore, and I listened to the Macworld podcast way before I ever worked here. So if it felt cool, and like Roman was always my favorite guy. When he wasn't back then, he wasn't always on every episode. He was just kind of like a special guest. Now he hosts it. I love Roman. Roman's a good guy.
He likes
He's
it
the
so
best
much.
fan.
Yeah.
He's like super smart, and he's like the coolest laid back dude ever.
I just think he's hilarious, just like a dry, witty sense. I mean, you worked with Roman.
I worked with Roman 100 years ago back at the other place. Yeah.
Was he always just that funny?
Roman has always been very chill and very like funny. And Lynn is like, "Oh, did I just say something funny?" And but he knows.
Yeah, Roman's
he knows.
Awesome. Well, look at that. Davina in the chat says Roman's great. Yeah. People know the Macworld.
Did you? What brought you back? Did you just want more stickers on your computers? Is that what you were looking for? You were like, oh man, I wish I had like 4 stickers on every computer I buy.
No, I mean, I would say it didn't bring me back. Apple forced me out. So yeah, I was diehard, and I was like, oh man, this is awesome. I that's when I started school. Like, so actually, when I went to audio engineering school, you wouldn't know it from what happened earlier, but
doing great. By the way.
Yeah. When we started the school, it came with a MacBook, so that was my first
wow, that's how they get
experience. Yeah, with a Mac. Well, I mean, but for audio production, like Macs are 100% still where it's at. So. Like, I totally understand that. But yeah, that was my first foray into it. And then I was like, okay, cool. I got a Mac Pro, and I started using all the Mac software. So like Aperture, Final Cut was my first video editor.
7 or 10?
7. Okay, yeah, it was
good,
like 4.
Good.
No. I'm sorry, 7.4.2 or something like that.
Yeah,
I
okay,
can't
real
remember.
software
like
there.
the last actual one. And then, so I was a photographer. I was using Aperture, and I was like, oh, that's great video editing software. I got Logic Pro. I got certified in Logic Pro, all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, Apple was like, Aperture? Nah, we're not going to make that anymore. And I was like, what the hell? Okay, well, I guess I'll use this thing called Lightroom. And then Apple was like, hey, Final Cut? Nah, let's kill that thing. Nobody wants to use that anymore. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll use Premiere.
Just to be clear, they didn't kill it. They just made a real bad version and then stopped updating the good version.
Wait, they still make
They
Final
basically
Cut?
updated Windows
still,
Make.
I know, I'm kidding. It's a joke.
Was it iMac? Was it iMovie? They updated iMovie is what they did.
Exactly. Yeah, no. Final Cut 10. I'm sorry.
Fancy iMovie.
That is not a replacement for Final Cut 7. Anyway, and then I was like, my Mac Pro, it's a little long in the tooth, so let's buy a new one. Oh, the trash can? Well, so it's just like
so small.
everywhere I wanted to go, they were like, "No, you can't go here." And
you
I
get
was
a
like,
little backpack for
"Yeah."
it.
But you like small form factors, Adam. Yeah, right.
It's the ultimate small form factor. It's a power tube.
And then around the same time, people were like, "Hey, you know what? Like Adobe products on the PC are just as good as the Mac equivalents." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Oh, I can build my own PC for far cheaper and like build what I actually want." Okay, so I actually blame Apple. They
pushed you away.
They pushed me away.
I got it.
So
should we do a podcast
about pushing away Apple?
I'm just asking.
Yeah. We're here. And yeah, Ziv's right. And Gordon always says this: the PC world leaves no man behind. It's true. Yeah.
Except for when he say we should throw ATX overboard.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's we have a lot of listeners that are younger than ATX, Elena.
Why would you remind us of such a thing?
There are people.
Will woke up and chose violence today.
Look, I'm just saying. It's real old. It's okay to, I'm not saying we should get rid of the old things, but maybe sometimes
millennials hate ATX. I guess that's why Gordon
me,
hates
Mr.
it.
Millennial. Me and Gordon.
Logan's Run edition.
Yeah, the oldest millennials.
All right, we got stuff to talk about. There is plenty of stuff to talk about. We're going to get through some fun stuff. But yeah, I guess we should just kick it in. Let's see. Yeah, everyone good? Everyone ready?
Yeah.
Everyone straight. Don't touch anything, and it'll keep rolling.
Don't breathe.
All right, don't breathe. Here we go. You ready, Willis?
Yep.
All right. Too many WILs.
I'm sorry. It's my fault.
Here. All right. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. In this episode of The Full Nerd, we review Ryzen 9000 reviews and into Let's do that again. Let's just do that again. Let's just do a tongue twister.
You're doing great.
I made it way too complicated. In this episode of The Full Nerd, we reviewed Ryzen 9000 reviews and Intel Microcode. Yeah, sure. Fine enough. It's good enough. It's fine. Welcome, everyone, to episode 312 of The Full Nerd, PC World's premiere podcast about PC hardware and PC building. I am your fill-in host, Adam Patrick Murray. On the line with me, I have the PC World man himself, Brad Charkis. Hello, Brad.
Hello. I just heard the intro music for the first time in probably 50 episodes.
Don't touch it. Don't touch it. Don't breathe on it. Yeah, great. It's good music. It's a banger, right?
Everything's going great over here today.
Yeah. We have the dance master herself, Elena Yee. Do you groove to the music?
There is no video evidence of it, so no.
All right. You do have video evidence that Will Smith is sitting right next to me here at the table.
I love music. I love to do a podcast dance.
Yeah.
So you got to always dance to the music.
Yeah. Does your kid do a podcast dance?
Does she listen to your podcast? Look, podcasts are for old people, Adam. I got bad news for you.
So it's like for ATX. Podcasts is like the ATX of radio.
Look, ATX was already 20 years old by the time my daughter was born. So,
And podcast, started in 2006? Is that? No.
Yeah,
5 somewhere.
4 or 5 is when the first. It's when what's his name from MTV.
So we're talking about 20 years of podcasting.
Yeah. I mean, look, some of the kids are into podcasts.
Yeah,
there was a podcasting class offered at my daughter's middle school.
Wow. Yeah, like production.
Yeah, like they do. They have they do an elective is make a podcast, which is a cool elective. Yeah. God, they tried to get me to come in and teach
kids these days.
They were like, "Hey, can you come in?" And it's like, "No, I'm not. Middle school kids are scary. It's too much."
Willis, controlling the verticals and horizontals. Did you attend a podcast production class in middle school?
No, I did
or
not.
High school or college?
No. Hey, everyone. No, not at all. But so I learned everything here from scratch. From learning from all the greats.
Yeah, just don't touch anything. Just don't touch anything. It'll be fine. So I've been on vacation the past week. We didn't have an episode last week.
Nothing happened.
Yeah, nothing really happened. It was just boring. No, it was Yeah,
Are
I was
you
on vacation. Everyone was.
Yeah.
No, I was not rejuvenated because I was still dealing with work stuff.
I spent a lot of time talking to you. I'm sorry.
yeah. It's fine. It's fine. It's good time. I like chatting. But yeah, I will say on the vacation, I set this up a little bit before the vacation. Something we're going to talk about doing a video on, but I've been using exclusively Bazite on the ROG Ally X.
Is it? I was trying. All right. Is it buzz? I got nothing. Is it good?
It's so for those who don't know, it's the closest equivalent to loading a Steam Deck OS on a Windows-based handheld, and yeah, wow, it's like surprising. I thought I was going to run into some things, and there's definitely some things here and there. They're like, okay, well, this is not quite like a Steam Deck. There was some setup stuff that it definitely takes a little bit of effort,
well, the Fedora install is a little involved. It turns out,
but it is damn good.
How does it do with the power stuff? Does it hook into the Asus's?
Yeah, I'm able to go to sleep. I'm able to actually sleep the machine. I still like turning off machines. I don't know. I'm weird, but
like, can you lock the TDP and stuff to the?
Yeah. It has an overlay you can bring up and mess with TDP. Because the Ally has a VR display, you can configure some of that stuff. You can configure frame rates. I feel like it's like 92% of the Steam Deck experience. Like not quite there, but.
That's pretty
close.
good, and better hardware too. Yeah, beefier hardware at least. Maybe not better, but
feels pretty good. I like it. We will be talking about Bazite in a future video for sure.
Yeah, I've been testing a bunch of the Linux distros for games, and I think Bazite's my favorite of the stuff I've looked at so far.
Good stuff. So if you have a handheld, or if you have a mini PC, if you have actually, I was wondering, I was like, what would it be funny to load Bazite onto a laptop? So you just make like a Steam Deck laptop.
So a lot of people are doing that. A lot of people are using Bazite on home theater PCs, and a lot of people are doing Bazite on laptops with I think it's only Intel and AMD graphics. You can't NVIDIA. There's some sort of problem with the driver. But generally speaking, pretty good experience. You get the full. It's a Fedora Blue, I think, is what it is. So you get a full desktop. Like you can use it as a full desktop. The Proton stuff lets you run Windows software. The YNX stuff lets you run crossover. YNX lets you run other Windows software, and people just use them as like they're just normal computers. It turns out a lot of audio people use Linux too these days because it has the you get the good interfaces that you don't necessarily get on Windows.
Low latency,
all that stuff.
Cool. Yeah. Well, and then we bored Brad to tears. He dropped. Just kidding. He messaged us saying he has some internet issues, so hopefully he'll be back, and hopefully he'll be back in time to talk about these. So right here in front of me, I have the AMD Ryzen 5 9600X and the AMD Ryzen 7 9700X.
Brand new, fresh in the box.
No, not anymore. Yeah. Oh, so somebody's coming back?
I am muted. Sorry, I was coughing earlier.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And Brad's back.
Oh,
just in time to talk about AMD stuff. Welcome back.
Sorry about that. I have no idea what was going on.
It's fine. We'll just don't breathe on it.
So in the system.
Yeah, how'd this go? Like, it seems like new processors came out. They're always faster and better than the last generation, right? No questions about benchmarks or no ambiguity about like whether these are actually good processors or not.
There's a lot to get in here. I do kind of want to start with what we dealt with on our end. There was so we didn't have a review video on PCWorld at embargo. You guys, you and Gordon decided to go live a little bit later and talk over some of the benchmarks and what happened and whatnot. So people can go watch that over there. We're not going to get into the benchmark weeds here necessarily. But the thing is that I worked with Gordon. Like we sat down, we made a plan. He wasn't able to benchmark the CPUs himself, so I was like, okay, I'll be here. I'll run the lab. Benchmark all the CPUs. We work together on the suite, testing methodology, all that kind of stuff, and it was like, okay, cool. Obviously got the pre-release stuff from AMD, everything loaded up, started running numbers, and I was grinding away at it, but there definitely is a fine line between, okay, well, we got to hit the numbers. I also knew I was going to be on vacation. It was a personal vacation that, like, I'm not going to cancel it for this. Sorry. And so I was like, okay, you know, what can we get done in that time, kind of thing. So I actually had about a benchmark suite that was about a day per chip.
It's like 9 or 10 hours.
Yeah, so able to run through one chip per day. The Intel and AMD ones we could do in parallel because those are two separate systems. Yeah. But the AMD ones were, you know, we had the 7000, we also had the 9000, so that kind of got stacked up. Unfortunately, you know, like, so when you're in benchmarking and I didn't realize this until I started doing it myself, is that when you're in benchmarking, you're like I'm still so new that I'm like, you know, making sure everything's set right, and you know, everything's you know, the same from run to run, and kind of going through the same processes regardless of chip and stuff like that. These are fresh new Windows installs, updated drivers, updated benchmarks, all that kind of stuff. And then when you just actually start to get to the numbers, you're just running the numbers, putting the number in, running the number, putting the number in. And at that point, I'm not even looking at anything. Like, I'm just putting the numbers in. I'm kind of spot checking a little bit to be like, hey, is this number weird? No, okay, this number seems fine. You know, let's keep going. It's not usually until later that you gather all the data, you know, and make charts, and you're like, oh, okay, if there's some inconsistencies, you can maybe go back and test something. But also then, like, usually, at least for me, I can't see a picture of how the thing is playing out until the end, or towards the end, because then, yeah, I don't know, something about it, you know, for me, I don't know if it's the same for you, Brad.
Yeah, you're doing all the brush strokes and you can't see the painting until the brush strokes are there. So
that's a good way to put it.
It's very much like, you don't want, like, the focus is, don't record something wrong, don't run the benchmarks wrong. Mm-hmm. You know, make sure you go down the checklist to make sure the system's set up right, and then you can kind of do a little bit of sanity checking along the way. But even that is pretty thin usually. Usually there's not like you compare the last gen to the last gen, and if it seems like it lines up, then you're okay.
Yeah. So that's definitely what I was doing, because I started testing with obviously the Intel chips, and I was able to look back at some of the older numbers, but some of the benchmarks are newer. Yeah. Like, we updated them, so like they're not always 1-to-1. And then the Ryzen 7000 parts, so I was able to once again kind of look at older results and be like, okay, well, they're performing like how they were last time. You know, it's fine. And then, as Gordon was talking about in the video last week, AMD provides sanity checks, you know, as part of the reviewer's guide, to say, hey, you know, these are what, under the testing conditions that AMD did, these are kind of, you know, the results that they got. Unfortunately, I did all the testing and then pieced out, gave Gordon the results, and, you know, left it to him to make the video and make all the charts and kind of stuff like that. I mean, I'm saying it funnily, but that's not
that was
funnily.
The deal. That was the plan.
That's what we were gonna do. Like, I was gonna be doing the grunt work in the mines, and he was gonna emerge with the numbers and sell the diamonds. and yeah, so when he started actually looking at the numbers and then cross-referencing with them with the AMD benchmarks, he's like, hey, these numbers are wrong. So then I had to get out of vacation mode, and like we all kind of worked to like troubleshoot and be like, wait, are our chips bad? You know, after some troubleshooting, we were like, nah, actually, I don't think the chips are actually bad. And then, you know, kind of digging into the settings, and one of the settings, it was for that I left, and I did this for testing last year too. I left PBO on auto, and the same thing for the Intel platform.
PBO is their kind of automatic overclocking.
Yeah,
thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's a version of that for Intel. I also left it on auto, you know, and that's kind of just how we've been handling that stuff. And so, come to find out, PBO on auto, you know, years prior has pretty much just been, oh yeah, no, we're going to turn that on. Yeah. You know, especially if you're pushing it real hard. But this time, and I actually ran some tests yesterday when I came back. I did some tests with PBO on auto, off and on, to confirm that, you know, it was auto off or actually on. And yeah, like, PBO on auto was turning in scores with off. Oh. So then when Gordon was like actually looking at the numbers, he was just like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. These numbers are not lining up with AMD's results, which AMD had PBO on, I believe, and they're not lining up with, you know, what expectations were, I guess, of like multi-core, you know, enhancements and kind of stuff like that. So
from what I understand, PBO is, I might be wrong on this, PBO is not explicitly enabled by by any motherboards, and I don't think AMD supports it in the warranty. Is that right?
Ooh.
I think AMD supports it in the warranty.
Yeah, I think PBO is.
Okay.
I thought I read the same thing as Brad actually.
Hold on,
that they
really?
that they don't guarantee
okay.
they don't guarantee the warranty
but
if it's turned on.
My point is, like, some people are like, why ain't you running with PBO? Because PBO is not the default option for the vast majority of people who will buy these things. It's going to be auto set to off.
Well, and especially for a Ryzen 5 and a Ryzen 7, I mean, that was one of the ideas for the testing parameters, is that the only thing that I changed in the BIOS, I left everything stock. The only thing I changed was to set the DDR speed to 6,000. And so for me, like my reasoning behind that is like, hey, like I want to see how these chips perform in this motherboard under default settings. Obviously some of it's AMD performance, and some of that is what the motherboard manufacturer is going to decide, right? But with the thinking of, like, especially for chips like these, people are just going to maybe turn on Expo or XMP and call it a day, and just kind of let things run on auto. So that was the thought behind it. Unfortunately, the numbers were depreciated because of it. So Gordon was definitely concerned by that. And once again, is it a problem? I thought initially, I was like, oh man, I thought I screwed up. Which, number one, to screw up after like doing 2 weeks of testing, like, is a real bummer. It feels bad. But also, like, I still very much take pride in the fact that I'm able to do benchmarks for a storied outlet like PCWorld. So I was just like, oh my God, I let myself down. I let everybody down. Gordon was going to be putting his name on these numbers as well. I let Gordon down. Luckily that wasn't the case. We kind of had to go through. So I got
worked in at some point here, and it was the day before the embargo. Because I am the executive editor of PCWorld, and I'm like, these things are off enough that we're just going to halt what we're doing, figure out what's going on at the bottom here. Let's talk to AMD. Let's do this. We don't need to rush to hit the embargo. Yeah. More important, make sure that we get it right than potentially massively messing something.
Yeah, and really figure out what was going on, and that also made it harder for me too, because then I was on vacation, so I couldn't come in and like actually troubleshoot the chips and be like, oh, so luckily Will was able to do some of that heavy lifting as well. So thank you, Will.
You're welcome.
I mean, luckily, once again, that's why I love working here, is that it really was a team effort. Like, it was all of us working together, like, figuring out, okay, well, what's going on here? What should we do? Make a plan, and
I mean, it's kind of like a CSI situation with all the fancy mood lighting, because we were all like everybody. I was sitting running benchmarks, and I was talking to Gordon, I was talking to you. I think you guys were talking to each other, and there was a good loop of, okay, what's real and what's not? Is this something like the first step is trying to figure out if we had done something wrong, or if
the chip had a problem,
something wrong with the chip or the board or whatever, and then talk to AMD, talk to everybody else, and then the reviews came out and everybody had the same numbers we did, and we were like, oh well, okay, and that's when Gordon and I.
But you don't know that.
We
You just never know
dropped.
that. Yeah.
Because everything's under embargo, and it's not like we're texting Steve and we're like, hey, what do your numbers look like? So we you guys decided to hold it, which I think was the right choice. I think looking back on that, I wouldn't. And then once everybody else's numbers came out, and Gordon, everybody looked at the other reviews, we were like, oh, okay, we should talk about why we don't have a review up right now. And Gordon and I took an hour and kind of talked through the numbers that we had got,
that we do have.
Why we didn't run the review when we did, because like if you're not confident in your numbers, if you're not confident in your tests, then I think erring on the side of holding the reviews. It's why I like being here with you all, because instead of just pushing it out and letting God sort it out later, we do the right thing and hold it.
Yeah, no, I mean it was good. It was a good team effort, and it was stressful, or at least on my end.
It was intense.
But yeah, we figured it out.
It was worth holding those numbers too, because I have never seen numbers quite like that coming out of a new processor. We were seeing spectacular single thread gains, a bunch of things. But then the multi-core gains, y'all talked about this in y'all's video, but the multi-core gains did not line up with what you would expect whatsoever, seeing that level of single-thread gains. It was roughly the same deal in gaming results as well. So we're like, hey, this is weird, take a step back. It turns out that just is how the chips work.
Yeah, and So, I mean, unless we have any specific questions about the actual testing parameters or processes, I saw somebody ask about did everyone use the same motherboard?
From Skisayer?
Yeah, from front of the show, Skisayer. I don't know. I did poke around and watch other reviews. I don't remember people mentioning which motherboards. We used the ASRock Taichi X670E, which was the same one we used last year.
So, just anecdotally, a couple people told me that the lowest results were with that ASRock board in particular.
Okay.
So that seems to be one of the commonalities. And some of the BIOSes had some different settings. I think Gordon and I talked about a little bit, like the SoC voltage was one of the things that AMD suggested changing, because it was defaulting to too high on the new chips.
Technically an undervolt, and yeah, of course you're going to get some performance out of an undervolt.
It seems like to me it seems like two things happened. Like looking at what's come out since then, one is that AMD defaulted PBO to off on these BIOSes, or the BIOSes weren't updated so that they knew to default PBO to on, which means that you didn't get that little default overclock out of the box, right? Which impacted our perf on multi-core stuff especially. But like, Gordon's going to scream at the radio when he listens to this, but I'm not against shipping overclocking off on anything. We've seen how this works out. We've seen what the end state of defaulting overclocking to on is. It's not good.
Yeah.
It wastes a ton of power that most people aren't going to ever use. And it's like, I say, let the enthusiasts turn their overclocking features on and ship the default to a reasonable power consumption for the millions and millions of chips that are going to go in like normal computers that normal human beings use and overclockers don't.
Well, that's why, and I wasn't around to do any of the video stuff. So this is the first time I'm kind of talking about this. I did talk about this in Discord a little bit, so some people knew my thoughts. But like, I mean, my TLDR, like, I think these chips are exactly what I wanted. Like, I don't know. I'm
low power, high perf. Yeah, it seems
good.
good.
Yeah. So I did this test just because this is back time. I'm back in the office, and with PBO off, I got a Cinebench multi-core score of 1085. It was, and then with PBO on, it was 1217. So good up to I don't know percentages.
It's like a 20% increase. Yeah,
I'm gonna trust you there.
15.
Yeah,
actually, sorry.
But with the PBO off or PBO on, it was 140 watts.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then PBO off was 88 watts.
Yeah.
PBO on, CPU package temperature reported by HW Monitor was 83C. PBO off, 52C. So, like here's the thing, and this is the thing. I was surprised to see like the reaction and all the YouTube videos and headlines and things like that, because I was like, oh, I think this is great. This is exactly what I wanted. Like, people are upset about this. And then the other side of it too that I was confused about is that, hey, listen. And I think, if I don't know, I haven't talked to AMD about this, but in my mind, maybe this is what happened in their head or in the motherboard manufacturers. Let's back up to 2 years ago. 13900K or 13th gen Intel comes out. What were all the headlines? Oh my God, they're dumping so much power. These things are so hot. Oh my God, why are motherboards juicing all the voltages? This is horrible. Ryzen 7000 comes out. Same thing. Oh my, 95C? We just have to accept 95C as the new normal? That sucks. Oh wow, AMD CPUs are literally burning in the sockets? When are they gonna stop doing this? Same thing with 14 gen, right? And then all of a sudden this comes out and they're saying, hey, by default, we're actually gonna enforce very good power limits and have stuff that's just not cranked all the way to 11s at default, and everyone's like
the same.
And then everyone's like, wait, why are you holding back performance? How could you do that? And I'm like, oh my God, what the hell? Like, it just feels like whiplash, right? Like,
but here's the thing: it always boils down to, and we talk about this like almost every generation, right? At this point, I feel like a broken record. And that is, it always boils down to the messaging around something, right? So like, I feel like because I've been a little bit out of the loop, honestly. I've been working on other topics for PC World. And so I didn't hear anything. And so this is how I'm gauging it, because it feels like if I heard it, that means they were being really strong about it. Because I didn't hear it, I don't feel like the messaging was strong. Like if AMD had like basically presented it as like, hey, we heard you, like you don't want something that's just, you know, a super equivalent of a super fuel inefficient hot rod. You want something that's a little bit sleeker, a little bit, you know, more tuned, like high performance, you know, but like low on resources that you have to, you know, worry about in terms of like thermals and how much electricity is going through it. So like we are giving you like the most like high performance per wattage chip that's out there. And here's why we love it, right? Like if they had marketed like that, I feel like it would have tempered this whole like, oh my God, look how terrible the performance is. You're not getting this gen over gen. Like, where's the progress? But if you don't, I think people naturally default to only caring about performance and not thinking about efficiency.
Well, they also talked about perf. Like they talked about perf on stage at Computex. They talked about perf when they were rolling out these chips. They didn't talk about the efficiency, and it wasn't like I watched those Computex keynotes. If they had come out and said, "Hey, we're running 40% lower wattage at the same perf," we would have talked about, like, that would have been part of the conversation. And
that's what I mean. Yeah, exactly.
And they as a result, they get slagged because everybody assumes perf. Yeah.
I understand. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I understand all the people who are confused and mildly upset at it, because having 5% gains.
Some people aren't just mildly upset about it.
Yeah.
I was just like,
internet, Brad.
Wow, hold on.
The internet.
I was like, oh my God, it feels like the CPU came out of the backwoods and kicked your dog or something. Like, oh my God.
I'm agreeing with everything that you guys said, because to me, like, if you taking a step back and thinking about it now that the dust is cleared to some degree, it's like, these are chips that are outperforming their last gen counterparts, as well as some of the 7900X and some benchmarks, I think, for a fraction of the wattage, 65 watts versus 105 and up. If they had to come out and be like, hey, man, we're focusing on efficiency, like, we're going to make it so your chip is real cool, we're going to default to 65 watts. If you want that off, flip on PBO, and we make sure that when the 9800X 3D comes out, don't worry, gamers, we're going to juice that thing back up to 105 degrees.
Yeah.
They'd have just been out and said something like that. Like, that's all they had to do.
Which they did talk to us about that during the tech day, but that wasn't a public event. Yeah. So, like, yeah. So, if, I don't know. After looking at it, I don't know. But I also, like, I understand that's what's the messaging. But, Brad, what do you say after every time a company releases their own benchmarks?
Yeah, take them with a big punch of salt, just like Donnie Brasco.
Yeah, and wait for independent reviews. So, like, I don't know, like the marketing, like, I get it, but I don't want to blame it on marketing, because you should just look at what the actual performance is.
I'm not saying marketing should stand for in lieu of benchmark. I'm just saying that it's, again, like human emotion. Like, outraged ponies wouldn't exist without human emotion, right? Yeah. So, and human emotion can be influenced by what you say to people and how you say it to them. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, but also, I mean, this is a change, because typically, and this is why I had defaulted to PBO Auto, is because usually the motherboard is going to default to the highest limits that it can. I mean, that's what's been happening. But I feel like what has been the norm over the past 2 years of, like, just, people yelling about motherboards being unregulated. The motherboard manufacturers are then like, hey, you know what? Actually, we're going to keep things regulated. Right. So that's also a different imbalance, because once again, AMD's numbers were with PBO on. So, and they're not the ones who, or I don't know, but, maybe they didn't go to ASRock and be like, hey, PBO Auto should, default to on or something. I don't know. So, like, part of it was the motherboard kind of messaging, which, I mean, motherboards don't come out and message that either.
Well, I think arguably, though, I do find it personally a little weird that, because you tested on like a high-end board, right?
X670 Taichi.
Yeah. So I do feel like to me it's a little weird that they wouldn't say, like, oh, if you're an enthusiast, you're more likely that you want as most performance as possible, and leave it the way that you thought it was going to be. Like, I could see changing the approach for, like, maybe like mid-tier and budget, because those users probably don't necessarily want all the, like, the extra heat and, like, electricity use. But, like, someone who's going high end, like they're more likely going to build with also equivalently high-end parts. So they're not going to they're not looking to limit performance. Do you know what I mean?
And I had a 360 millimeter AIO on there. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
but
I'm kind of surprised a little bit by that.
I am surprised too, but also this is what we wanted, or at least this is what I wanted. I want everything to be stock bare bones, and then have the option to go in and say, hey, you know what? I want to turn on XMP or Expo. I want to turn on PBO or MCE. I want to go in there and like fine tune it myself. Like I actually, this is what I preferred. This is what AMD and ASRock or whoever did for this launch. That's why I'm like, this launch felt great to me because this is exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
The thing that I still do, sorry, Elena.
Oh, I was just gonna say I could see that. I also think that a lot of us have reached a stage in life where we're like, no, I don't want to do anything. I just want it to work, but I want the fancy stuff because I can afford it now.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, so there's two things. One is that the market segmentation on motherboards has gotten really weird lately. And it used to be that the expensive boards were the overclocking boards. And now it's often that the expensive boards are the white boards or the boards that have good Wi-Fi or the boards that have 10
multiple
gig
Ethernet,
or like a good USB bus for audio mixing stuff. The other thing though is that I think the AMD, like, I just wish AMD would say, hey, we intended for PBO to be on or off, because I don't think anybody's gotten that out of them yet, and we don't know, like, is this a, hey, we're changing the default state of PBO on or off rather on the auto setting in favor of stability? Or is this just these motherboard BIOSes were jacked up and they should have had PBO on because that's what they expected, and they were really surprised when all the numbers came out soft?
This to me speaks, like, I wouldn't say it's duplicity, but I don't like what they did with their reviewer's guide.
Yeah, it seems like they're trying to get the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah, the entire point of these, not the entire point, but a big point for these chips are, hey, they're power efficient. They're locked to 65 watts. Looking at other people's reviews, that's really why I think we saw soft multi-core performance. When you kick it up to multi-core stuff, it brings the general clock speed down and a bunch of other issues. It just can't keep up in multi-thread.
Yeah.
Especially
the second that you flip PBO on, it blasts away that power efficiency. So it's going completely against the points of what these chips are supposed to be. So for them to have PBO on benchmarks in the reviewer's guide is why we always take manufacturer benchmarks with a grain of salt.
Also, I will say, like, reviewers' guides always recommend something, but then internally you have to figure out as a reviewer, oh, okay, you know, like what do you typically do, right? Because I mean, like, AMD might recommend, hey, we you know, here are our numbers with PBO on, this is what we recommend, or the voltages or whatever. But then, you know, as a reviewer, then you're like, okay, well, thank you for your recommendations, but, you know, we're going to use, you know, maybe JetX speeds on our RAM. Maybe, you know, we're going to use Gen 4 SSD instead of Gen 5. You know, maybe we're going to actually have PBO off. Like, there are reasons, like, that's the great thing about benchmarks, is that everyone kind of does them in a different way, and then you have to watch all of them to kind of paint the picture. So, like, I actually don't think everyone should just do exactly what, you know, AMD says in the reference guide. Like that's actually a benefit to have, you know, something that's a little bit different. But so I would say, like, AMD has never, even Intel, or at least since I've been looking at this stuff, they've never come out and been like, hey, you have to set it at these settings. These are what we recommend it. They just give them.
No, get out of here. Yeah, they would never do that.
Yeah. So actually, like, in their reviewer's guide, they will give numbers. They will give the way they tested numbers, but then that's still up to us to test it on how we want to.
Yeah, the sanity check.
So
they're not trying to dictate.
And I think that's part of why Gordon was like, unfortunately he can't be here today to talk about it. I know he's very excited to talk about it as well. I mean, we've been talking about this stuff, but I think that's also why Gordon was a little confused, because once again, in the past, usually you set PPO on to auto and it's going to go to on anyway, you know, so he's expecting to see numbers that are, you know, as fast as they can get. So, like, and when I told him, oh, well, we have PBO on auto, and you actually done a spot check test last week, you know, to say, hey, you know what, actually it's defaulting to off, then it's like, oh, okay, well, then that makes sense why these chips are not, you know, going all the way that Gordon would expect when, you know, he's testing.
I honestly, I wonder if they've made an internal change to PBO auto means off as a result of the next topic.
But once again, then it's like, okay, that's great, because then you offload the understanding of whatever could potentially happen to the user. Hey, you know what? You want to overclock it? Go for it. It's at your own risk. Or you want to push the limits of it? Go for it. It's at your own risk, and I wouldn't blame them or the motherboard manufacturers that at all. I mean, really, I think that's not something AMD would tell us. That's something AMD would tell the motherboard manufacturers, right? So I don't know. I'm happy by this launch. There's that other part that we're like, oh my god, this is not even as fast as the 7800 X3D, or oh, look at the gaming performance. It's not like. Who cares?
Can't compare that.
I get it.
It's a little unfair to say.
I know, but
who cares?
I know, but
people care.
I mean, yes, people care, and if 1% lows,
we need to get the coconuts.
I totally get it. Even at 4K Ultra with a 4090, you can still get CPU bottlenecks. I totally get it. But like Gordon says, I know Gordon, if he was here, he'd say it as well. For gaming performance, you're usually wanting to care more about a GPU than a CPU anyway. So people were like, personally, so why would AMD even release these if it's not even faster than the 7800 X3D? Well, guess what? Maybe these CPUs aren't for you, or you don't have to buy them. You could just buy a 7800 X3D.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. One, why would people even buy these? I have thoughts about this. But two, I've said this before. I think you're either on the X3D or a non-X3D upgrade path at this point. Like, if you're an X3D gamer, you shouldn't care about these chips. You're on the X3D path. Wait till the X3D path, then you figure it out.
Yeah.
These never going to be made to stand up to the X3D chips of the prior generation. But two, this chip really is for a lot of people, because I've gone around. We were having so many issues. I read every single review out there to try to put this together in my brain. And if you go and look at Level 1 Tech's Windows review, if you look at Phoronix especially, does tons of Linux-based server stuff. There's a bunch of other sites out there. Those are two that most people know, so I'm throwing those out there. These chips excel in server workloads, AI workloads, stuff that makes money. You know what else is important in data centers? You know what else is important in data centers? Efficiency. And it's like I always say with the Radeon GPUs, people are like, why do they cost so much? Why aren't we seeing as many as we see NVIDIA GPUs? And I say, you got to think about where the money comes from. AMD builds they only have so much TSMC capacity, and GPUs are so big and make them so little money compared to other stuff. They just don't get the wafers. AMD has separated Radeon GPUs, RDNA, and a separate compute workload one, CDNA. They haven't done that for chips. So this base architecture is the same architecture that drives EPYC chips as well as consumer chips.
All the way down to laptops.
Yeah.
And
all the way down.
Yeah.
And if you look at the financials, which is boring as heck, I know, I hate it too. It makes my eyes melt. But they've made billions of dollars over the last few years. They're up to 25% plus in the server market. They're eating Intel's lunch, and that's where you make big bucks. So I think this is a case of AMD just saying, we're going to prioritize for this generation a bunch of the stuff that server and EPYC needs. And this will just be kind of a pass for more consumer needs, unfortunately.
Well, and also, I mean, to that point, a lot of what they talked about during that the tech day when we were down there, they were talking about efficiency, and they were talking about laptops too, so it's so I don't know if you I understand we're here, we love the desktop, we want the fastest, coolest technology at all times, but a large company has to serve all these, and for these efficient chips on the laptop side, that's a huge thing, right? And for the server side, I don't have any insight into that as well, but yeah, that's where a lot of big money is. So they're having to make one product that feeds all of it. And if you think about it in that way, that's crazy, because I mean, on the other side, and AMD points this out, quickly, because they like to, but Intel has a multi-tier approach, right? Even in laptops, they have two different architectures, one for beefy, gaming and creation laptops, and one for thin and light. So, they're like, hey, we get to have the same Zen 5 architecture across this whole stack, which is good for them, and can still be good for us. So it's. I mean, again, at the end of the day, this is
the same to better than the 7700X in pretty much every way. Again, at nearly half the power usage. Does that mean you should rush out and upgrade to this, especially if you have a 7700X? No. Like, you should probably go get a 7700X. You have a 5800X 3D. Just keep using that. You still have a good part. It's fine. Not upgrade to things. They don't fit your needs.
Hey, sorry, there's a comment. I need to pick on somebody here. Sandy Tofu Disc in the chat. The problem with just get to the 9800X3D is that the base chips being this lame, the 9800X3D is unlikely to be a noticeable uplift over the 7800X3D. So for now, 2 years later, we are stuck with lame chips for another 2. How often are you upgrading CPUs, dude? Like, I don't know.
I don't know. Depends on whether if you're Intel, it's like every 6 to 9 months. It turns out you just get a new one. They send you a new one and you replace it.
And a new motherboard.
Like I can understand you're seeing these as lame, but man, there's still people like gaming on 5800X3D. Get a 5800X3D, and like that's still fine.
That's not even the right argument, Adam. That's not even the right argument because what? First of all, I want to know what crystal ball you have.
Well, I mean, understandable, right? Like if it's using the same cycle, I totally get the logic, but at the same time, like
we don't know yet. Like the thing is, we don't know.
We don't know.
You don't know.
Yeah.
And when you look at the uncapped,
but also, oh man, 2 years of CPUs that are like not lighting the world on fire. Are you really that CPU bound in whatever workloads that you're doing? That like, oh man,
not on the X3D part.
Well, hold on.
Typically,
we can anyway.
So I mean, I think this is more like honestly for me where the outrage is best focused is the fact that everything's so freaking complicated still. Like I wrote the the normie version of like the most of like what's going on with all these chips, right? So like for readers who come to our site, like they don't need a deep dive like for how long we've been talking about this, right? They just want to know like quick what's going on and then just be done with it. And like what struck me as I was writing that was just like, dude, if I was buying a computer or if I was building a PC for the first time, like it's already difficult enough. Like, why do I need to now think about like, is this BIOS setting on or off? Like, what's happening with like this manufacturer's chip versus this manufacturer? Like, why do I have to worry about my power efficiency? Like all these things, like most people just want it to work. That's why they use things like mobile operating systems. Like they want a device that they just touch something and it just does the thing for them. And we are in an enthusiast space, and this is why we're debating it. But for me, like every time I look at things like this, I'm like, man, like every time my friends ask me, they're like, should I get this or this? And I'm like, how much time do you have? Like how granular do you want to get? Do you really want to make this decision fully yourself, or do you want me to give you some like suggestions so that we don't have to go over the whole rundown? Well,
and like to Adam's point though, like I've been an Intel person. I've run Intel for more than a decade. At this point, I'm on a 7800X3D now. For that entire run, it wasn't until the 13900 that I could put the next generation of Intel chip in the same motherboard that I was running for the previous one, right? So the idea that you can upgrade CPU without having to gut the entire system and rebuild from scratch and build Windows and do all your setups and stuff again is really novel and exciting to me. So I get the desire to be like, oh man, can I spend $500 to make my computer faster? But also, like I think to your point, the 7800, just because presumably 9800 X3Ds and 9900 X3Ds are on the cusp the back half of this year, doesn't mean that the Zen 4 version of this chip is bad. Like you can, if that's what you're looking for, go nuts, right? I mean,
also the other people are like, oh man, this just means I can't wait to get a Ryzen 7000 part on discount. Like, do you think AMD's going to be upset about that? Like, they're still selling Ryzen 5000 parts. Yeah. Which is still crazy for me. Yeah. So
I love it.
I don't know.
AIM4 still around.
Yeah. I don't know. I felt like I was a little bit of like, am I the weird one? Because like everyone just seems to be so angry about these chips, and I'm like, I like them. I don't know.
I'm not angry about it. I know that you were kind of iffy about whether or not we should publish that first day, but the results were so weirdly skewed compared to everything else that we have seen before that it was worth taking.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. and I mean, there's some people who are like, wait, hold on. Does PBO always mean auto? Like, I don't know. I feel like, ever since that I've been working with Gordon and he's been testing CPUs, he's used PBO auto and is almost always just defaulted to on.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's for everybody, but it's just,
If you look into it, I think it's like officially PBO auto is more of like kind of like dynamic boosting, right? But it's like decided, I think, by the motherboard. So I think it makes it harder to determine just like how much it's getting, right? So, I mean, obviously in this timeline, like where we're at right now, this part of the timeline, it is not giving that much versus if you just flip it to on. So I think it's more of like a muted version of like what it means to get PBO or use PBO. It's not, but I don't think it's like completely just like dead off.
I mean, at least in the quick test that I ran, like, because I ran auto off and on, and auto and off were the same, like, performance numbers.
In both single and
multi. Yeah. So, I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's definitely a lot to think about, but I mean, either way, I would be surprised if any of these CPUs, there was huge stories of like, oh man, these CPUs are melting, the motherboards are just who knows? You never know. But I do think part of this reason is because of the next topic. Why
maybe people are being more conservative for reasons.
Like, wait, you're gonna get mad at AMD for not doing the Intel thing? Like, but
it's funny.
Well, obviously, you're not supposed to do the Intel thing. You're supposed to do the perfect thing.
Look, the outrage pony is not a logical pony. It is a pony full of bile and vigor.
Yeah. So
Vibes.
Anyway, the news is, and actually did update the motherboard that I did the testing with for these chips to the new microcode. Because I want to do some of our own testing to kind of see the microcode stuff. But if you didn't know, Intel CPUs have some problems lately with degradation. Let's just say it's a complicated issue. Intel's been silent. So there's. But then recently came out
policy like 3 or 4 times in the last week. So.
Yeah. So I mean, Steve over at Gamers Nexus has done a lot of good reporting on that. A lot of good stuff over here. We don't need to get into it, but I saw the articles of Asus coming out with their microcode updates, and then I double checked this Gigabyte board that we have, and I was like, oh wow, okay, actually Gigabyte did release their version as well. So, like I said, I'm going to do some testing into that.
As has MSI and ASRock at this point.
Oh, okay. Okay, awesome. And then so which is once again to go back to the AMD thing. You're really going to get mad at AMD for not doing the Intel thing? Like, I don't know. It just
when you were talking earlier, when you were like, 2 years ago, people were like, oh, this is taking so much juice. And then it came out again, 1400. This is taking so much juice. I'm like, oh, no, this is a good example because it turns out they were.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Real quick.
Yeah.
PSA, go check your motherboard. You should,
They're beta.
The microcode updates are beta.
I mean, but still, I don't know. I still feel like it's worth it. Does everyone else feel like it's worth it to run the beta BIOS?
I just switched to an AMD machine a couple months ago, so I don't know if I'm in a position to say.
Yeah.
But I beta microcode gives me the hives. I like to run production microcode. Call me old fashioned.
Wait, it says it's beta microcode from
Intel.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So the question I have is, how is this delivered through BIOS updates? Is that how you're getting the microcode?
Yeah. So
yes.
the
and that sucks.
Yeah, because they theoretically can deliver this through Windows Update, right? I mean, I guess when it's non-beta, they will presumably.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so that's why I'm confused, because nowhere on this Gigabyte page says that this is a beta thing. It says update microcode to address sporadic vCore elevation behavior announced by Intel. It doesn't say, like, nothing in the actual BIOS numbering and nothing in the description says beta. That doesn't mean it's not. Maybe Gigabyte should make that change if it is actually in beta.
Does the F6F mean that it's beta, maybe?
No, because the last one was F6E.
Oh, okay.
That was the one I ran during reviews. But
I have some somewhat complicated thoughts about this. One, it's great that this is finally out. If you feel comfortable updating your motherboard BIOS, Definitely go do it. I highly recommend it. I would, if I had one of these systems, I would be doing it right now. But 2, delivering it through motherboard BIOSes mega sucks. The vast majority of gaming laptops out there, or gaming desktops out there, yeah, we're all nerds. We're on the full nerd. 95% of those people are never once going to update their motherboard BIOS. Like that never ever happens. I mean, but on top of that, I was watching Billzoid did a really interesting video that I was watching this morning or last night, and he was testing this with the Gigabyte Aorus 790 Master, I think it's called. Mm-hmm. And it works just fine using Intel default settings, which is those new default settings that came through in recent months in motherboard BIOSes. But he found that at least on this one motherboard, if you used anything but those Intel default settings, the voltage still spiked up to where it was before.
What?
So yeah. Which is insane. I don't know if it's that one board in MSI messing up. I don't know if that's indicative of another thing. But if that is the case and you need to use Intel default settings for this to work, they couldn't push it through firmware because 95% of the motherboards that are out there were sold before Intel default settings were a thing. So this is pretty messy.
I mean, this is definitely messy across the board, for sure. For Intel, for people who actually own stuff. Like, I mean, I've definitely seen people. Hey, you know what? If this means anything, I've definitely heard Gordon with his machine that we built him for screen cap stuff. Yeah, he's like, hey, I immediately downloaded the BIOS and then made sure the PL1 and PL2 were.
He's running Intel defaults.
He's running Intel
Gordon
defaults.
Should ship overclocked.
Yeah. Gordon, like, hey, power, maximum overdrive was even like, hey, you know what, maybe I should make sure the CPU is stable as well. So it's got a lot of people scared, and I totally get it. Even Alex, because we built him that small form factor editing machine, he was like, wait, I have one of these chips. What do I need to do? And I was like, yeah, let's walk through some stuff. But
yeah, that makes it infinitely more complicated, because if that's the case, that you need these Intel default settings, and I went back and looked at Intel's messaging. They said this firmware update should be used in conjunction with the default settings profiles that motherboards started to ship out recently.
Which doesn't surprise me.
So you can't update during doing firmware, which to me means that at least 80% of these affected chips will never be patched.
Yeah. It's well, I mean, the whole thing's unfortunate. Like, I feel like the communication from Intel has continued to be lacking. Like, I get that they're looking like this. Maybe we'll see an update to Gordon and Steve's series about whether Intel's finally hosed.
We did have a question about that. Yeah,
but like it feels like they're bungling the messaging on both the, hey, let's keep from having an enormous recall side, and the, hey, let's tell people what they need to do to make sure that their computers keep working side, which is unfortunate. I'm glad the microcode update's out there, and I'm interested. Did you do any performance testing with it, Adam?
I barely started it. Okay. I got through Cinebench, and surprise, there was no changes.
That's good.
We didn't test, but I can speak to it. Jay's 2 cents got MSI microcode like the second that it came out, which, funnily enough, Intel pushed out on the day of the Ryzen 9000 reviews.
Weird that's such a surprise.
Total coincidence, I'm sure. But he managed to jam through something and test a bunch of popular benchmarks. He said there's a couple where you see a slight decrease, but effectively margin of error, nothing's changed. For Phoronix, again, if you like deep technical computer stuff and you don't mind listening about Linux, go check out Phoronix. They're awesome. They ran something like 140 something different benchmarks, all kinds of specialized stuff to test different parts of the CPU. And I forget which app there was. There was only one app that showed a 10% difference. Otherwise, it was all in margin of error.
Oh, that's
You don't have to worry about performance impact based off everything I'm seeing.
That sounds great.
Yeah, seems like it. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, but I think the other part of the equation is like, okay, well, I mean, they have come out and said officially, right, that this microcode update is not going to magically fix CPUs that already have degradation.
They've never used the word degradation, but that's pretty sure what it is.
So, which begs the other question of like, oh, okay, cool. Maybe this fixes things for the future, doesn't impact performance, but what if you already have problems. I also want to shout out Brad Shoemaker from Nextlander. He has an Intel system, but he's also been enabling hardcore PL1, PL2 since the beginning.
Hey, Adam, I got bad news for you about that machine.
Yeah, does he have some problems?
He was getting NVIDIA, when he was trying to run Half-Life Alyx last week, he was getting NVIDIA out-of-memory errors on it when it was launching and doing the shader compilation.
Wait, and his power limits were like
I know.
Not even PL1, PL2 250. I think he had like 120 and 170 or something.
So he might have brought it down so low that it's causing other problems. But
well, but I don't remember if he was limiting voltage. So maybe he was still spiking voltage.
But he was having what seemed like oodle errors to me.
Yeah, who knows? It's just.
NVIDIA just must be sitting in the corner stewing about this, because that's what it's so many people who run into this see and think.
I mean, that's it. Like, hey, I have a 4090 with 24 gigs of memory on it. Why am I getting out memory errors on this enormous video card? You're not. Yeah. It's not you. It's Intel.
Yeah, I don't know, and maybe I'm being too naive, but I've seen a lot of people say, "Hey, don't buy Intel." I still actually do think there are reasons to buy Intel processors. The lower end seems to be less affected, right? Like, and that's probably where the majority of the CPUs are sold anyway, like an i3, i5 kind of area anyway. I feel like, like coming out and saying, hey, don't buy any Intel CPUs is like, no, I mean, there's still a gray area. Like, I think lower end.
I agree with your line of thinking, but I don't agree.
Yeah, no.
Really?
Yeah, go ahead.
Wait. So you don't recommend anyone buy anything Intel right now?
Well, now that I know how the fix came through. Yeah, Meteor Lake's fine. Probably Arrow Lake or whatever's coming out on the desktop soon will probably be fine after all this. But now that I know what the fix is, I'm glad that it exists. I don't think you should be worried about it necessarily. If you're an Intel user already, go install that motherboard BIOS. But 99% of people never will. And I think that the reason we saw this on the high-end chips is because they're getting hit with all the extra power, all the overclock settings and stuff.
Yeah.
But every chip, Core i5 and up, are affected. So it's really hard to recommend to somebody, hey, man, go buy a 9600K when we know this has this problem. And their fix for it does seem to work, but it's going to linger for 90% of computers. Because anybody who would ask me which chip should I buy is not somebody who's going to ever update a motherboard BIOS.
And also, I don't know that we know that the fix is going to work yet. Like the fix hasn't impeded performance, but it's such a weird, sporadic problem for most people that like whether this fix like the only way, like I would love to get a brand new out of box 13900K, fire up my
no one should ever buy them
light baking mode and run the light bakes for like 3 weeks and then see if it's still stable with the new microcode.
Not recommending them is still different than saying like, because I don't know. I still feel like there are reasons to buy 13 and 14th gen. Like, and if
I mean, there are reasons.
No, I'm saying there are people are going out there and saying, hey, don't buy any Intel CPUs ever.
Well, yeah, no, that's stupid. Obviously,
okay. But that's what it sounded like you guys were saying.
We're talking about specifically like just this generation.
13 and 14th,
yeah. Well, I mean, sorry, we're talking about things that exist already. We're not talking about. I mean, I'm pretty sure Brad's not talking about future generations of chips.
Oh no! And what I'm saying is there are people on YouTube right now saying don't buy 13th and 14th gen CPUs.
I think that's fair advice.
Dead stop.
Right, but I think that's a fair statement because it has to do not with the features or the benefits, but more of like the practical experience of it for most people.
Yeah, I don't know. Tricky because
like it seems like it feels like too extreme to me to ever say don't ever do anything. Like there are reasons.
See, to me, one, if you're doing something that just responds super well to Intel and you're totally fine burning through a $400 chip, if that's what happens in 2 years to get that done faster, great, go for it. You're a well-informed consumer and you know what the heck you need.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, so many Intel chips are affected. Core i5s and up. Like, right now the 13100F and 14100F is the best budget CPU you can buy for gaming. And it would be all right. But you can't, when you're trying to pass advice onto general consumers, you can't add all these caveats. Like you should buy an Intel machine, but only if it's one of these SKUs and it's under 65 watts and blah, 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 blah. Knowing that over half the lineup is going to have issues and needs this microcode. So to me, it's totally fair to say, hey, man, they messed us up real bad. Don't buy Intel right now. We're not really sure what's going on here. We know some chips are going. So I get that point.
Well, and like we've seen this effect down to we have a 14700K that's iffy now because of time spent in a bad motherboard.
Oh, yeah. I should say, I don't think you guys maybe mentioned it in the video last week. I can't remember. But yeah. So like the 14700K I had on hand testing from last year, I actually had to buy a new one because it wouldn't pass.
Because we put it in my Maximus motherboard. Yeah.
So it wouldn't pass the testing that I was doing. So
is that the Kiss of Death motherboard? Is it that reliable?
That motherboard is a pretty
which to be clear, I didn't use for benchmarking. Yeah. This is your motherboard, the separate one,
the enthusiast one.
Wow.
But I think I think that there's here's the thing. If AMD didn't have a viable competitor kind of across the board, I would say, like Alex is working on a project that is specifically only works with Intel's video encode acceleration. It doesn't work with AMD's. Like we're working on a project for him that uses that. And in that case, yes, we're going to say build an Intel 13th or 14th gen machine. And then we're going to, by the time we do that, the microcode stuff will be out. And presumably the new processor we buy to do that won't be affected anymore. It'll be fine. But if you're going out and buying a machine right now, I'm perfectly fine saying go buy the good thing that AMD makes over the iffy thing that Intel makes. I think that's a fair recommendation.
Which is a different recommendation than say don't ever buy Intel ever.
Well, yeah, but nobody's saying that.
No, there are people saying that.
Well, look, I don't want to tell you how YouTube works, Adam.
That's all I'm saying is that like there are reasons to buy these chips. Like, would we recommend them? No.
And in a month, it's going to be a different situation, right?
Like let's not jump, like so far down is just like Intel is completely done. Don't ever buy it.
I feel like you are falling into the same hole that Gordon fell into, which is that you've heard the cavalry ride so often.
Yes, you're right. I watch way too much YouTube.
Anytime you hear horse hooves, you're just like, no, not in my neighborhood.
Adam's jump to conclusion, Matt, only has one spot on it.
Yeah,
F Intel.
I mean, listen, if I could change jobs and not work on YouTube anymore, I probably would be much happier with my life.
No.
Big statement from a video guy.
YouTube is can be very scary.
Like all I'm saying is that I think for the rest of us, like I hear where you're coming from, but I think the rest of us, like when we hear somebody say like don't buy Intel, like right now, or like don't buy Intel, it's a bad idea. What we hear is them taking the summary of all the reasons why it could be problematic and just kind of doing a very quick, like, newsflash, here it is, details at 11 kind of thing. But I understand why you're hearing it as the horses are coming. They are riding.
We ride at midnight.
The horses are here, unfortunately.
I actually
drowned out my sleep.
Have a friend who was in the process of building a PC, their first PC. And they were asking me a couple weeks ago, like, what chip should I buy? And I'm like, when that they're fairly normal people, like, they don't watch the full nerd. I'm like, Intel's got a lot of stuff going on right now, man. AMD does good stuff. That's where I would go. And that is the gist of these recommendations, I think. Like you're not trying to put all that on people. You're just saying, hey man, AMD's got good stuff and their stuff doesn't blow up. So
look, the other way to handle this is to give them a 6-hour breakdown of everything that's happened over the last year and a half, and then they're never going to ask you for advice again. So it's
exactly
yourself some future trouble.
Exactly right. And that's why, we started this off talking about lackluster Ryzen 9000. That's why it's so disappointing. If they were able to go out there and get those gains that people were expecting across the board, like this could have been
with PBO on. You can.
It's complicated with PBO on, and some tasks you can, some tasks you can't.
Look, I live that PBO auto life forever, man. I'm never going to default to on. I just want to be auto.
It could have been a mic drop moment, but
it could. But I think. But the thing is that I think that emotional response, Brad, is the very reason why we've had such a weirdly divisive response to these new AMD chips, right? And we'll see later this week what the full story is about this initial lineup of launch chips, right? But even just for these Ryzen 5 and Ryzen 7 chips, it's just like everybody, I think in their head, like, I don't know if this is a general internet thing. I don't know if this is us in America, like spreading some questionable values to the rest of the world. But I think people are just really invested in this idea of big wins, like not even just like in terms of what we get as consumers, but we want to see one team crush the other. Look, we don't even want to see like one team just like win by like their nose, like just getting ahead of somebody else at the finish line. So we almost set ourselves up for disappointment because we're just like, what? I didn't get 35% increase in performance. Like, where's my 70% uplift? Come on.
We're always chasing that deal, right? We're always chasing that like everybody's chasing the Celeron 300A and the GeForce 1080, right? Like the so much bang for your buck products that you just feel good about spending that money, and those are special like there's not too many of them for a reason, right? There's few and far between. So
you know what's awesome? You could, if you had right now a 5800X 3D chip with a 1080 Ti in it, you'd still be rocking and rolling, man. Those are legends, both of them.
I know. But I think, as Will just said, like, we're just chasing that idea of like the next amazing thing to blow us away. And when we don't get it, we kind of throw a temper tantrum, I think, as a collective whole on the internet.
Counterpoint to your chasing big wins, my favorite part of the Olympics was watching Ray Gun fail hard at Blake Clinton. So throw that out the window.
No, I mean, that's the thing too.
No, I know.
Like,
I'm just joking. I'm joking.
It's different, like when it's like they are just that top of their game, that it's like then it comes down to the wire. But I think in general, most people are like, I want to see this huge difference. Yeah. It has to be exciting.
No, I totally get it. Also, Onikaze says you don't have to upgrade every generation, folks. And that's the other thing too, is that like I actually think all the people who are yelling on the internet are probably not upgrading every generation either. They just like to see their team win, or they like to just argue about things. And it's like at the end of the day, hey, you know what? At the end of the day, these are just computers. These are just computer parts. Why are we yelling at each other?
Do you need a hug, Adam?
Let's just be friends.
I think Adam needs a hug.
Yeah.
Adam really
it was like just to see people get so worked over CPUs that no one's ever gonna buy. Then it's just like, I feel like I'm gonna
channel Gordon here and just say, like, remember, like 8 to 10 years ago, when we just got nothing but 4-core 8-thread chips with like moderate, like 8% uplifts gen over gen, and we were like, oh, it's okay, we're doing pretty good. And now we have almost the luxury of arguing about the fact that this chip is artificially, quote unquote, being limited to 65 watts for TDP, and therefore it's like crushing all of the potential performance, And
that actually plays into what I was telling my normie friend. I'm like, hey man, just go buy an AMD part. He doesn't ever need to know any of this enthusiast hand-wringing and drama about PBL on versus off.
I hope they don't.
You just take it, you go put it in the machine, and it works. And that's the reason, I just say, hey, man, go get an AMD part this month.
I mean, 52C. It was running full core, got the same performance of 52C. Oh.
Someone give Adam a hug already.
Isn't that great?
Some people, yeah, there we go.
Oh, no,
broke the TV.
Oh, no. This is what happens when we show physical affection for each other.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Yeah, don't touch me.
We'll never do it again.
It's my bad.
Yeah, I don't know. Just, a part of it also, I heard about some drama in Discord earlier. So just like, hey, you don't need to call people idiots. You don't need to yell at people over CPUs.
No, be cool, man.
Dude, they're
be
CPUs.
Chill. That's the whole point. That's the whole point of our server. We just want to be chill and hang out and make some virtual friends.
We're all super passionate about this. Like, this is my career. I've been doing this for years. Will's been doing it even longer. Elena, Adam, we've all been doing this for years. But at the end, these are all mega corporations fighting to charge you money.
Yeah, so. don't be on the team of the billionaires, guys. This is my hot take. The $1 trillion corporation, even though you like their products, is not your friend at the end of the day. Yeah. They're just trying to sell you stuff so they could be a more $1 trillion company.
Anyway, sorry. Yeah. It was a frustrating vacation.
I just like building computers, man. Why can't we just build some computers?
Yeah.
I know.
Hopefully soon. Let's switch over to Q&A. to finish this stuff out. If you have a question, get it in the chat right now. Unfortunately, sorry, a lot of people have been asking about super chats, so it requires you to link a YouTube channel with a Google AdSense ID because we are a large company. We're trying to figure out exactly how to do that, because I'm not just going to link it to my personal Google AdSense ID. So for the people wondering why that's not,
the last time that someone went into our YouTube account and started willy-nilly changing settings,
exactly. So you know what? Yeah. Just we're taking our time. We're figuring out the right way to get Google AdSense connected. I appreciate you want to throw some super chats at us. I really do, but we haven't figured it out yet. Also, I'm not in a huge rush, to tell you the truth. And no, Joseph, I will not use your AdSense ID.
Adam's Venmo is
Thank you. If you got a question, get it in now at the Full Nerd Podcast, or go over to the Full Nerd Discord. There's a link in the description. Awesome chatter over there, but we do have a channel specifically for Full Nerd questions that hopefully we can answer on the show. We got some good ones here. Some of them we've kind of already touched on. Let's see, Ziv, friend of the show, Ziv, what is the performance uplift of Ryzen 9000 series parts versus non-X Ryzen 7000 series? Does it seem like AMD have reined in the out-of-box performance potential at the last minutes out of abundance of caution, given than what's been going on with a while for Intel? We were talking about that earlier. Like, I really do feel like they're, hey, you know what? we're gonna just sit back and chill. Let not everything get on fire, and be fine. So
these things happen. Like, remember GeForce 9000 series, 900 series, not 9000. They were meh, like whatever. But that was when they switched to Maxwell, which is the power efficient architecture. That's why. And then all the gains from then have been taking that efficiency, building performance on top of it. So it's going to be another couple of years, but I'm hoping that's what we see out of AMD.
And then also, the prices did drop. We did talk about. We didn't talk about that, but the last minute the prices came in. That the pricing did drop a little bit too. I have not, unfortunately. Willow asks, is the curve optimizer a gimmick or not? That's one of the things that I did. So in testing, you have to come up with a list of things. Okay, what do you want to test? What do you have time to test? There's definitely things that we did not get around to testing that I'm hoping to follow up on, because I definitely do want to check out that new curve optimizer. For
Can I talk about prices for a minute?
Yeah.
I've been all over the internet looking this up because, as I said, our results are so off. I'm reading everything about it. Turns out they were spot on, but you know what I mean. The prices, I've seen a lot of people say, it's not fair or realistic to compare MSRP now versus the MSRP launch prices 2 years ago of the 7000, and that is totally incorrect. It's good to evaluate what these companies are doing. Like when they set these launch prices and the features and everything, they're like, this is what we're doing today as our advancement over the last generation. So that's what you can evaluate when you look at MSRP. Obviously, over 2 years, the technology processes and stuff get better, chips get cheaper, and so forth. So yeah, you can go out and get a 5800 X3D or a Ryzen 7000 chip for a lot cheaper right now. Like, if I was going out to build a new AMD machine right now, to me, Ryzen 7000 is clearly the way to go. But it's still fair to measure MSRP to MSRP. They're kind of evaluating two different things. And I just saw a bunch of chatter about that this week online, so I want to throw my two hats in the ring so I can get yelled at too.
Yeah, there's definitely a reason to look at MSRP because, like you said, that's a company-based decision. Why did they make those decisions? Because prices could adjust. So it's definitely good to look at. I understand the end consumer; they don't care. They just walk into a store and they look at whatever price is in front of them. But it's still good to evaluate. Yeah.
Wait until 6 months from now when all the 7000 chips are gone, and this is our new baseline. So then you'll have something to compare against.
Yep. Friend of the show, VC Jester, how do you feel about Intel not warranting Tray/OEM chips bought online? I am not aware of this.
I think that they've gone. But when was the question posted?
Today at noon.
Okay, well, so I watched this Steve video that went back and forth on this, and I don't actually remember where it ended up at this point because they changed what they've added and removed Tray to their notification about the warranty status multiple times to the point that it's kind of unclear to me where we are right now. So yeah,
I have a fairly good glimpse at it. Yeah, So they have gone back and forth on it. Trade chips are covered as part of the extended warranty, the extra 2 years and everything, the returns. The tricky part for Intel is they don't sell trade computers. Like you're supposed to, that's what Dell buys. That's what like Newegg buy, not Newegg, because you buy boxed retail chips. That's what Intel warranties. So there's no way for them to say, hey, contact us for your tray ones. What they now say is go back to whoever you bought it from. It's part of the warranty.
So that means if I buy a tray chip from Central, I have to go back to Central and deal with them to get my replacement. This seems like an argument in favor of buying box processors forever and ever going forward.
It would be.
Yeah.
Depending on the discount you get.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it's a good enough discount, maybe it's worth doing it, right? For the price is right.
It feels bad if they're not going to, like, on a part that you usually don't have to deal with warranty on, which CPUs, like the number of CPU warranties I've turned in the 25 plus years I've been building PCs is basically a couple of 13900Ks at this point. It feels bad for them to not just deal with this even on the tray parts, honestly.
Yeah, they definitely need to come out with a real strong feel good story.
And it's made worse because the initial post said retail and tray contact Intel, and then they changed it on the second revision of the post or something like that. It's not great, not a good look.
Friend of the show Sneaky asks, for AMD not trying to patch a majority of their CPUs for sync close exploit, does it mean potentially aftermarket CPUs are more susceptible to the attack, for example? Some bad actors may try to flood the market with infected CPUs, etc. Did we write about the sync close thing on the website?
Mike Kreider did.
Oh, okay.
Did you want this, Elena, or should I speak about it?
Nope.
All right. So I'm not super worried about it. It makes for good headlines. It really is a flaw, and I'm glad it's out there and disclosed. And they are fixing all of the processors that are still in warranty, which is great. That's what you want to see. This flaw apparently goes back to like 2005 or 2006. There's something going on. But, man, I got some gunk in my mustache, and none of y'all told me till...
We can't see it. It's invisible to
us. Okay, great. Well, in that case...
What gunk? What are you talking about?
I never had any gunk in my mustache. But... to exploit this, like you already have to have control of someone's computer enough to have kernel level access. Like if someone has that level of access to your computer, you're already hosed. And nobody's going to try to get that level of access to your computer, to get kernel level access, to go in, to put in firmware flaws and exploits and stuff like that, unless you're somebody like Syria, the U.S. government, Microsoft, like a huge thing. So I'm glad it's disclosed. I think some of the concern is wildly overblown for the practical effects.
Well, yeah, to the question, do you think they're going to flood aftermarket CPUs that are susceptible to the attack?
No.
Yeah, because you would still need access, right?
Again, you would have to have active malware on your machine that's able to do this. And I know a lot of enthusiasts are like, I don't run antivirus. Everyone should be running antivirus and being smarter about where they click to catch stuff like this.
A friend of the show, Davina, points out it's a theoretical vulnerability at this point. Yeah. So definitely something to look at, and glad they're addressing. But yeah.
If I was at the NSA, man, I'd be looking into this, but I'm not at the NSA. So
yeah.
Go buy AMD.
Friend of the show, Magical Flying Fox, is x86 screwed? I actually did a video with this with Steve during Computex. Is there anything more on brand for the PC enthusiast internet reaction than proclaiming the death of a company brand thing because the first numbers to appear were only underwhelming instead of the second coming of Christ? Okay, I just barely read that whole thing. That is funny.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why the x86 part of it. Maybe they're making fun of the video I did with Steve.
I think probably. Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're doing there.
You
I see what you do.
There.
Oh, got me. And actually, yeah. To go to the actual x86 thing, I've heard a lot of chatter, especially up to Computex, about, like, hey, Qualcomm, is ARM-based devices? Are we going to all of a sudden, just is that the future? Is it every, what was their stat? They were going to say like 70% of all laptops were going to be ARM-based. Is what?
Yeah, in a few years.
Yeah. So I get it. It's a legitimate fear of like, what happens if every PC becomes, or it gets dominated by ARM rather than x86? What does that mean for desktop? What does that mean for Windows? What does that mean for the future?
But what if you want to run kernel mode software on your laptop? That'll be impossible in a Qualcomm world.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's nanny state computer. They're locking everything down. They're keeping us from running our software, man.
Which I do feel now it's changed a little bit since reviews of the Qualcomm laptops. Like, okay, these are not bad laptops. I mean, it's not for everybody, and there definitely are problems. I continue to get performance problems with Discord specifically.
I saw you trying to tap in, and I was like, this is the slowest I've ever seen Discord running.
Right?
It's kind of remarkable.
I tap, and they're, like it's so weird. I don't know why Discord specifically just lags, and no other app that I've been using daily has lagged like that.
It's like you tap a channel, and then there's a 3 count before the next channel even starts to draw. It's nuts.
Yeah. So
I think like, to get serious for a second, like, I don't think ARM inherently has an efficiency benefit over x86, like, when you really drill down on it. I think it's that, Intel and AMD have skewed towards performance in their battle over the years. ARM obviously built for efficiency, but AMD and Intel are getting really good at that now. Like, Gordon did that massive, like, hour-and-a-half video of Qualcomm, and he did another one for Ryzen AI 300 a couple weeks ago.
Real good video.
Yeah.
In both of those, there's a section in there where he talks about how he used the KVM brand laptops doing the exact same thing all the time. And all 3 of those modern chips doing the exact same thing at the exact same time. Yes, Qualcomm is more power efficient, but not anywhere near as much as you think.
Well, it's the thing where Qualcomm started with low power and low performance, and Intel started with high power and high performance, and like we're at the point where the lines cross now, right? And it turns out it's a wash.
Yeah.
Yep. I want to correct it. The quote was 50% over the next 5 years. Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah, by 2028, I think, or 2029.
So I don't know. It's curious. It would be curious if our future did look like that.
Not if Discord keeps running janky.
Yeah, right. But it's okay because next year, we already know that next year is 100% the year of Linux. That's what I've heard.
2025.
Yeah, 2025, the year of Linux. That's what I'm more worried about.
You shouldn't be worried. You should be excited. You should think of all the videos we can do about our inevitable transition to Linux.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Datus, friend of the show, Datus asks, at the end of the most recent GN video, Steve mentions the need for another installment of Is Intel Screwed with Gordon? When can we expect this? Ideally in a hotel/bar restaurant for the eventual laughs. I don't want to say anything, but I know there has been talks about it. So, no guarantees, but, hopefully sometime soon, because I would like to see that as well. It's fun to watch that being filmed. Because
they're very
The last one that they did was at Computex last year.
Yep.
It was in a food court
in Taipei,
and Gordon started yelling, and Steve was like, "Dude, stop yelling! There's people around." The camera, you can't see the room, so I looked around the room and I was like, "Oh yeah, definitely people like staring at Gordon and being like, what the hell is he saying?"
I also love it. It's when just casually Taiwanese aunties just pass by them, just looking at them, and then they just walk away, just minding their own business. Yeah. But then they just give them a glare, and it's like, okay, none of my business.
Yeah.
It's very funny.
A lot of these are about AMD stuff. We kind of already covered. Here's a good question. A friend of the show, CosMC, did AMD back themselves into a corner with the 3D Vcache parts across all SKUs? And I've seen a lot of people not. Or question why are they releasing it off cadence? Why would anyone ever buy the non-X3D parts? Why are they even releasing these non-X3D parts? I definitely I've seen that chatter, and for gaming, yes, that does matter. But I don't know. For me, I feel like it's just a different market. Some people care about the 3D Vcache parts. Some people care about the normal parts. I think that's okay to be on a separate cycle, or I don't know.
I mean, in a perfect world, everything would come out on the same day, right? I would love to sit here and be able to say, okay, we have an entire range of CPUs from the Zen 5 range of CPUs, all of them that they're ever going to release for this generation of processor.
And have perfect amounts of inventory.
And have like everything in stock and all of them are made and like everything's great and there's no problems. But I mean, it's not how, like there's an enormous supply chain and manufacturing and testing and like, honestly, even reviewers' ability to test the amount of hardware that's come out in the last month is like,
we would die. Or we would just have people outraged that we didn't have all the data for them day one.
And in the old days, they used to lead with the high-end SKU, but then they realized that actually leading with the low-end SKU has manufacturing advantages and stuff like that. So like I get it. Just wait 6 months. Just like, you know, go touch grass or something and don't worry about it so much.
I wish this goes back to the conversation we were having earlier. I think it's just marketing again, man. Like AMD's marketing needs to step up. If they're like, hey, you know, 9000 series, the perfect all-arounders, like we have all the cores, they're at good prices, you can do anything on these. And then actually have the X3D chips be like, all right, if you want the ultimate gaming experience, that's what X3D is for. And have those, you know, staggered every 6 months or something like that. And because the base chips, they do clock higher. Like there are reasons to buy the base chips, especially if you're not a gamer, over the X3D chips. But they just like, hey man, you know, these do great in gaming. Don't get me wrong, they're better than last year's. But if you want good ass gaming, wait 6 months for the X3D.
Well, and the thing to remember, new chips are coming out right now, right? Like we're seeing new chips. Just because there's a new chip out doesn't mean that your old computer is any slower than it was yesterday. Right? Yes. Like this is like your hardware hasn't degraded in the last 2 weeks because new stuff is available. Like that.
Maybe it has, but it's not because new stuff is available.
Intel, maybe that's a different look. But your AMD machine, your AM5 machine, just as fast today as it was a month ago, and that's the thing to remember. So.
What's the phrase? Comparison is a thief of joy.
Yeah.
Look, there's so many joy thieves out there now, Elena. I don't even know where to start.
It's ponies. A couple last questions. We get out of here.
We've reached the Adam muttering under his breath section of the show.
Adam has reached capacity.
All right, a couple more questions. We'll get out of here. Friend of the show, CosMC, has asked it a couple times. I definitely want to get to it because now the official Olympic Games have closed. Paralympics are coming up. I actually do enjoy watching the Paralympics as well. Tune into that if you can. But what games would the Full Nerd crew like to see at the official esports Olympics in 2025? Should the esport Olympics allow for controllers, or are there performance-enhancing drugs?
Oh my God! I'm not answering the drug question.
Wow, there's a lot. There's a lot in that question.
First question: What official esports Olympic games would we like to see?
Oh, I want those parkour games from Roblox and Fortnite that the kids play.
Parkour games?
Yeah, have you never seen these?
No.
They're incredible.
No, they're great.
Yeah, so it's like Tower of Hell, I think, is the famous one on Roblox, and it's like an old school Quake mod where you have like an enormous tower and it's all like 1 pixel jumps, no assists, nothing. And you basically just climb this infinite thing. When you get to the top, it's a race. Whoever gets up to the top wins. They're very good. I want to see that.
Wait, racing the Tower of Hell owner after 5 years again.
Those Roblox games are good. I was thinking League of Legends to get back. I'm down for that Roblox stuff. CSGO to me is a must-have. Then you can fill out whatever else you would like. I would love to see a fighting game. I'm not sure if that's considered esports.
Those are esports.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Good.
Hey,
good.
You can
I love it. I love FGC, man.
Do you have like a button mashing league, or do you have is it all like combos and frame timing and all that stuff, you think?
Depends who is playing.
Okay.
But I would be down. I would love to see both. But yeah, I would love to see I think CSGO, I think League, I think a fighting game, and then you can fill out whatever else you want. But I think that would cover the bases.
See, I'm with Al Bundy. I would like to see speed runs. Get official like, because I know there's a whole speed running community, and you know there's like all that kind of stuff, but like to do it live, you know, at a major competition, like sure it might not be the world record, but it might be like the record at that competition. I think that would be fun.
I feel like when the Games Done Quick people do the head-to-head speed runs, it's always really intense. I think you have to have Tetris too. Like the stuff that's been happening in the Tetris community over the last 6 months is bonkers. Like they're breaking records in Tetris that people thought were immutable.
Yeah.
My friend showed me like a live stream of
tap it.
I think like one of the championships, and it is weirdly intense. I was just like the whole time.
My 11-year-old doesn't care about most of the stuff that I'm into, but Tetris high level NES Tetris we're always down for. Yeah.
Also, I like Coffee's suggestion of RTS. I don't know which RTS game would be fun, but that would be pretty fun to see. We
already have League of Legends. That's all the RTS we need.
I'm talking about big, massive battle.
I think it's super funny that like Will and Brad have given like very serious answers. And when I heard this question, my first thought was like, what random what's the word I can use here? What random game can I suggest just for the lulls?
I have Burger King X360 game.
No,
the racing one.
I would love to see Olympic level like showdown for like Power Wash Simulator.
Oh yeah, that's some good watching.
That's just like Zen. Like everyone's just at their TV, Zen. Like
I just think like the shenanigans, the shenanigans would be great. Or like even one of like the farming simulators, which are like weirdly popular. Like I just think any of the simulator games, like because there's people who play them are so passionate about it. Like I think they would get up to some like hilarious stuff.
I think, yeah. As I'm thinking about it more, I think Fall Guys would be actually pretty dope for the Olympics. Just you get one match, guys. Go for it. But
Rocket League, right?
Yeah. Listen, since this is
that might be
PC World. Since this is PC World. I'm thinking of the Ocho. What have I been watching on ESPN Ocho the last few years? Breakdancing. Now breakdancing is in the Olympics. The Ocho is it's a kingmaker. What else have we been seeing on the Ocho the last few years?
What?
Excel World Cup.
Excel, yes, the Excel World Cup. Yes.
Oh, that would be great too.
That would actually make sense for what we're doing.
I also would take GeoGuessr. I'd love a GeoGuessr round, like just the competitive GeoGuessr where you get like a random street view from Google Street View, and then you have to tell people like you have to mark where it is on the map, and you have to take cues like which side of the street are the street signs on? Which direction are people driving? What does it's fantastic. GeoGuessr is really fun to watch. People who are good at GeoGuessr are intense too.
Okay.
I really want Overcooked to be in the Olympics because there's nothing that makes and breaks another
they should be beeping the whole time.
Like Overcooked.
There's a game on Steam that I've been meaning to buy. I don't know if it's still on sale, but it's called, I think, Calyx. It's basically like a non-branded IKEA version of something like Overcooked or like Keep Talking When Nobody Explodes.
Wait, Calyx is an IKEA furniture, right?
It is.
Yeah.
I think so.
They don't make them
anymore, you test your friendship virtually by seeing how well you can build furniture together.
Oh, that sounds great.
I proposed it to my friends. I'm like, let's see if we survive this.
That's pretty funny.
I really like. I think a serious answer though. Something
Sonic and Mario
skill.
at the Olympics.
I'm sorry.
Obviously,
it's a console game. It's a PC World. Like Rocket League. Rocket League is one of those games that has an infinite skill ceiling. There are Olympic athletes that are Twitch Rocket League streamers that I'm aware of. The gymnast who did the pommel horse, the gymnast, is a Rocket League guy. And that game has infinite skill ceiling as far as I can tell. I think Rocket League would be great.
Nice. All right.
I
dig it. I dig it. Last question. Crap.
That's a bad question.
I was going to save this one for Gordon, but we'll ask it anyway. Friend of the show, Ivan R. asks, is Tenet your favorite Christopher Nolan movie? I know Gordon's answer, and he'd go on a very long rant about how crappy not only that movie, but I don't even think he liked Christopher Nolan. Or contemporary Christopher Nolan.
I'm not touching this one, man.
I want to give it another shot. I went into it with high expectations, and it definitely did not meet them. But I have seen some people be like, "Hey, listen, I've watched some breakdowns and things like that," and I'm like, "Okay, it's probably not as bad as I remember it, but I don't think it's the peak Christopher Nolan."
It's just inscrutable for the sake of being inscrutable instead of Inception has inscrutability built in for plot and character reasons. I did watch a good YouTube breakdown about the problem with Christopher Nolan
contemporarily is that he's doing a lot more talking than doing, or like usually he allows the story to just unfold by itself, or you get to kind of like get things out of it at your own pace, but instead he makes it so complex that he feels he needs to actually go in and just like say the thing.
Show don't tell.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't think it's definitely not my favorite. I don't think it would be anywhere near my favorite. I
really love Interstellar.
I kind of do too. It's not my favorite either, but I like Interstellar as well. Yeah. And we at the AMD event, it was at the hotel that they had filmed the science part of it, the beginning part when they were in the secret NASA bunker or whatever. I don't remember what it was. Yeah, it was filmed in the hotel. Yeah.
It seems like an old Hyatt.
It is an old Hyatt.
Yeah.
No, is it Hyatt? I can't remember. I don't know.
There's a brutalist period of Hyatt architecture that is very conducive to like that era of science fiction.
Also, I'm Batman. That's a funny option.
Yeah.
So thank you for that poll.
I am
I'm sitting here shocked by that reference. That was brutally accurate description of those kinds of buildings. And the second that you said that, I knew exactly what you're talking about.
Was that a pun, Brad? Was that a pun?
Oh,
it was
Brad with the wordplay.
And Elena picked up on it. Of course, Elena picked up on it.
I'm like, Roman, what do you mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh,
also, Elena,
shrug like Roman does, just super casual.
Elena, I just want to let you know, I look at commas all the time now.
My work here is done.
Yes, I really do, and I'm like, Oxford comma right there. I'm a fan.
Isn't it a beautiful thing?
Yeah, I can't.
I
feel like for the
Choose
rest
clarity,
of I feel like 50 years from now, I'm gonna like message you and be like, hey, I still look at commas and think of you. You ruined it for me. Just kidding. No, you've enlightened me to it. Yeah.
So. I might not have gone to Oxford University, but I went to the Oxford Commerce School of Hard Knowledge.
All right. Any other burning questions, or should we get out of here?
I could go for a lunch. I don't know about you guys.
Lunchtime. All right, cool. Check back next week for your fix of PC talk here on The Full Nerd. To listen to us on the go, subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, Pocket Casts, anywhere you can point our RSS feed to. We're hopefully on there. And if you are on one of those services, please leave a review. Every time you do, Christopher Nolan gets to make a new movie.
Oh, God. So I don't have that much time. We have like 3 hours.
Yeah. I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you, Brad, for joining us. And also thank for your help last week.
No problemo. Anytime.
Yep. Teamwork. Thank you, Elena Yee, for commas.
I didn't make them, but I will champion them.
Lord of commas.
Yeah. Thank you, Will, once again for your help last week as well.
You,
Team
Adam,
effort.
For bringing me in on this madhouse that you call a full nerd.
Yeah. Also, people keep asking about your giant bomb shirt. It's a good shirt.
It's an old giant bomb shirt. My friend Ryan Davis used to say, instead of good luck, have fun at the start of a game, he would say good luck, have Batman, because he thought it was stupid to say good luck, have fun. So it is our t-shirt guy at the time, BuzzClick, made this shirt for us, and it's my all-time favorite, and I dug it out of the closet to
love
wear
it
today.
Yeah, love Giant Bomb. And thank you, everybody, for watching, tuning in, all this fun stuff. I really appreciate it. And thank you to Willis Sly for controlling the verticals and horizontals. He's going to take us out of here.
All right, thank you, Adam. Glad to have you back. Hope you had a good vacation. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
I can hear it again.
Yes.
The voices.